Okay, we're back. It's Professor Barry Brennan talking in my argumentation class about, what am I talking about? Refutation process. And we finished, remember the first video, we talked about a lot of different things, but we were talking about fallacies, and we're going to continue that discussion about fallacies right now. So let's go. Here we go. Okay, fallacies of misdirecting the issue. Remember, this is what you're looking for in your opponent's argument. You're looking for fallacies. Fallacies are erroneous reasoning. Shifting the burden of proof. This is kind of a fun one. So the advocate is the affirmative side. They have the burden of proof. Remember? Like the prosecutor in a trial, they have the burden of proof to someone is guilty because everyone's assumed innocent. Same as status quo. Okay? So instead of proving, the advocate, instead of doing this, they challenge the audience or opponent to prove it. That's a fallacy. They're shifting the burden of proof, considering a fallacy of misdirecting the issue. Their job is to prove, has the burden of proof to prove that something's wrong. If they put that on the opposition, that's erroneous. Okay. Begging the question, what does that mean? Restating your argument or claim are grounds for your argument. So restating your argument claim as that should be as grounds for your argument. So rather than, I've heard students do this, you state what your proposition is, we know what your proposition is, and then you just restate your proposition in a different way. You've said nothing new. And you've made that as grounds for your argument, meaning that's your evidence, is your proposition. It makes no sense, right? Be careful not to do that. Straw man fallacy. Casting your argument toward an issue or idea that distracts the audience or opponent from the primary argument. Okay? Casting your argument toward an issue or idea that distracts. This can be emotional, this can be purposeful, but your attempt to have them focus on something else and rather what you're really arguing about. This happens in politics all the time. Non sequitur fallacy. The conclusion of an argument does not follow from the original premise. You can use deductions, your powers of deduction for that, right? They give syllogisms and how things are how things are deduced, how you form an argument. It doesn't follow. Non sequitur means it's a non sequitur. It doesn't follow from what you first said. One doesn't follow the other. Okay. Formulating your response. So you're getting ready to formulate your response for refutation, and you've done this work because all of the stuff that I talked about before is the work that you're going to need to do using your listening skills while you're listening to your opponent present their argument. This is all preparation for you doing your refutation. Once you've determined the absence or presence of fallacies, you have to decide how to respond. Okay, so if they're making a faulty argument, which is argument with fallacies, it's simple on how to respond. You're going to point out how their reasoning is erroneous, right? Now, if their argument isn't faulty, you got to have to consider a lot more ways of actually approaching how you're going to respond to them. So when I say pick your battles, save your energy, means you only have so much time to do this. You only have so much time to make this argument, right? This is a time situation. You have to decide, I like to use the word, how much bang you're going to get for your buck. You have to decide what you can get the most out of. What is it in their argument that you can make best use of to argue for your side? In some cases, saying nothing is more powerful than pointing out your opponent's flaws. So in some cases, you have to decide too, By pointing out what they did, will that make you look bad and then make your audience have less trust in you? Or by pointing out what they're doing bad, will it put more focus on their argument rather than having the audience focus on what you're saying? There's a lot of strategy that goes into this. And I realize this is quick thinking. That's why we're talking about this before you even do the debate. But it is really fast, quick thinking. If you choose to refute, you need to have a strategy. So you're going to have to refute in the second part of the debate. But remember, the second chair positions on both sides have the opportunity to refute what the other is saying, to start refuting then. So you need to have a strategy. That's what we're going to look at. Determine which argument is most vulnerable to refutation. So vulnerable means easy to pull apart and show how ridiculous it is, how erroneous it is, how lacking evidence, how much evidence it lacks, how weak it is, right? Think about that. Vulnerable meaning weak. For policy debate, consider which stock issue has the weakest argument or evidence. So you're listening to these 4 stock issues. Both first affirmative, and first opposition have to present that. Where's the weakness there? Right? What part that you can bring your own information and your own research in to refute them? Where are they weak? See how fun this is? It's kind of fun. Consider the attitudes of the audience. Well, you know your audience is your school audience. Okay, so I don't want to underestimate that. I just kind of went by that really fast. Audience analysis is key. It's key in public speaking. It probably has some key components in debate because we are the ones that are going to be judging whether you persuaded us or you proved your argument or not, right? Not persuaded us, but proved your argument or not. So that's important. So you need to think about what are the attitudes and beliefs of your audience. Tactics. Refutation by denial. If the conclusion is flawed, highlight error and counter with supporting evidence. So if the conclusion of your opposition that they've gotten to has a flaw in it, right? The conclusion would be like the cure, right? If it's flawed, you want to focus on that error, highlight that error, and counter with your own supporting evidence. Refutation by mitigation. Minimizing the impact of the opponent's argument, diminishing the strength of the argument. So point out where it's weak, where it's lacking evidence, where it's lacking data, where they haven't provided research that's relevant. Attack the reasoning. Again, faulty evidence. Okay, so their reasoning process could be part of that. Refutation by additional consideration. Reducing the argument to absurdity. Dissecting each step of the opponent's argument to expose the flaws in the characterizations and reasoning. So looking at, I don't know about you, but I do this in my own personal arguing, is that I will reduce someone's argument to absurdity. I will pick it apart step by step, showing the flaw in the logic and show that the whole thing doesn't make sense. That is refutation by additional consideration. All right. Turning the tables, taking a negative position, turning it into a positive or vice versa. So you could also try to use what your opponent has said, use it against them. Right? Use it against them in some kind of strategic way. All these things need to be thought about before you even get there. So when it's your turn to do the refutation, to refute what they've said in that 1 minute deal that you have done a lot of preparation before you even get there. Okay. We have a little bit more. Step 3, refutation preparation. Debaters must anticipate what their opponents plan to argue. They need to prepare for contingencies, meaning all kinds of possibilities of where the way the argument may go, the way it may be presented. And they need to prepare with alternative briefs that reflect potentialities and decisions debates might take. So I always tell students that when they're getting ready for the debate, it really benefits them, it behooves them to consider how, like, if you're the affirmative, you have your argument, right? You have your stock issues and you've laid it out. But if you're in the opposition, you want to consider, you don't know what they're going to say. So you want to consider all the possibilities of where they might go. And if you're the affirmative, you want to do the same because you don't know what the opposition is going to come up with. So you may want to have more than one way to refute something think of how you want to refute based upon how they might respond. You want to have that evidence. You want to have it in terms of a brief, in terms of a stock issue, right? Maybe there's more than one organization or group or agent or agency to blame, right? Have that ready. Maybe there's more than one solution, the solutions they bring. Maybe you can have more than one examples. But you have to decide then, as a team, how you're going to take that approach. And you really have to know your stuff well. Finally, presenting your response. So you want to have what we call a declarative refutation. It must be well-organized, carefully reasoned set of criticisms that counter your opponent's argument. There are 4 steps. Identify the point to be refuted. Remember, you have 1 minute. Label and signpost your refutation. So what exactly are you refuting? Are you refuting the blame? Are you refuting? What are you refuting? Support that refutation with evidence. Back it up with your data. And then show how the impact your refutation show us what it does. In your cross-examination, we're getting to the end of this video. In your cross-examination, you want to ask questions in a way that does not unfairly bias the answer. Make sure you allow enough time for your opponent to answer. Identify the point at which you want to question your opponent. Identify the point about which you want to question your opponent. Ask the question succinctly. Have it prepared. Think about it. Ask follow-up questions. So if you have one question you want to ask, then be prepared to ask follow-up questions. Move on and apply this to your own argument. So you're asking this information for a reason. Be ready to use that information to apply it in your refutation. All right. This is, I'm going to just leave this here and let you take a look at it on your own. This is going to be something that I'm going to have you do on the discussion board. Basically, you're going to be working with your partner, and then you'll work with your whole team. First part, you work with your partner, then you work with your whole team to address what kind of fallacies the opposing team members offered up, and then you need to define them and explain why you said they are such fallacies. So it's basically a fallacy discussion board assignment. That's it, folks. I'm done. I hope you have a good day. See you later.